it just doesn't function like a normal ankle. Like it just doesn't function the way it is. But I mean, there was like so much trauma to it. There was an infection inside of it, and then obviously playing on a broken bone for like the greater part of probably like 4 or 5 months just didn't really help. But when I went to the Philippines, that was my very first job. Like after I had my whole ankle dispute, and I got off the plane, and everyone that watched me walk into the gym was like, "Man, who the hell is this dude? Like, he can't even walk. Like, why would you guys sign this guy?" And I had 55 that day, and everyone was like, "Oh, okay, he's good. He's cool. He can stay."
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Role Player Podcast, presented to you by the good folks at Swish Cultures and Eurohoops.net. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else you get your podcast. You can also follow us on social. That's YouTube, IG, TikTok, and Twitter with the handle at Role Player Media, and also on the Swish Cultures YouTube page. I am still Jordan Taylor, now a 12-year pro in the new season. EuroLeague vet, rolling with my multi-talented Stanford gentleman, retired 11-year pro, Swiss Cultures co-founder, and basketball savant, the one and only Anthony Goods. Ant, was good with you, man. I got my hair cut, as you can see, just for our second episode of the season, and also to start a Euro Cup this time, man.
And I also see you a Kappa brand ambassador. I see you got the logo front and center.
I was trying to sit up. My posture ain't where it's at. I'm more of an LDN. I'm a London bruv now, man. You know what I'm saying? Representing London the way it's supposed to in Kappa. They gotta get the Nike on here though. That's crazy. I'm talking to my guy.
I'm willing to bet. I'll probably bet everything I own that you and Nick are probably never gonna retire. I've been hearing about both of y'all retiring probably for like the last 5 years. I don't think either one of y'all got it in y'all.
We are probably polar opposites on a lot of different ways. Just height, obviously, I got more hair than him. Obviously, he shoots it a lot better than me. I'm probably a little quicker, polar. But that is one thing we have in common. We both might never retire, man. But speaking of that, we got a real good guest for y'all today, and I kind of just introduce him for those that couldn't tell already. He's a two-time B-League champ. Bear with me because this might take a minute, man. So I'm going to start with very decorated consensus second-team All-American in 2007, a three-time WAC Player of the Year at Nevada, three-time first-team All-WAC, has his number retired as a Nevada Wolfpack member, the number 22, Mr. Colorado, Mr. Basketball in 2003, two-time B-League champion, three-time B-League Player of the Year, two-time B-League Finals MVP, five-time All B-League first team, four-time B-League scoring champ, two-time B-League scoring or rebounding leader, and three-time B-League import player of the year. And he did all that and then decided to trade his American passport in for a Japanese one and did a whole lot more. We got the one and only Mr. Nick Fazekas. Nick, appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I guess you sat there and said a lot of stuff that shoot I don't even recall. But yeah, obviously Japan has treated me good. Just sort of resurrected everything I had going there. From Nevada and with the Mavericks when I got here to Japan. A lot of things happened between sort of Dallas and getting to here, and I'm happy to be here. It's obviously been a blessing, and yeah, I think this is actually the last year.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, man, with that. You've had a hell of a career, like we said. I read something somewhere that said out of all those accolades, the getting your number retired was the most important to you. Is that true? Is that whole true, or was that something for the Nevada fans?
I mean, being drafted is, the biggest and best thing. All of us dream of playing in the NBA, and, the draft was a big day for me and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, of course, having your number retired, it's only the second number in Nevada history. Just having that sitting up there and sort of, being able to take my kids there or whoever back there for some games, and, my name and number will be up there forever, is obviously a pretty special deal. So, that and being drafted probably go pretty closely together. But, having the jersey retired just really kind of just, shows that, everyone appreciated what you did and really recognizes what you did. And, shout out to Eric Musselman. He's the one who sort of got that done for me. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it's something that, it was pretty cool.
You've done all these crazy things as a pro. What is it? What year is it? 16?
Like 16 or 17,
16.
something
You
like
done it.
that.
Can't even remember yourself. That's crazy. You've done so much as a pro that I forgot probably one of the biggest accolades. Your second round pick, 34th overall to the Mavericks back in 2007. And then you played 2 years in Dallas, right? And which is a hell of an accomplishment in and of itself. And then had a pretty serious foot injury. For those that don't know, it's kind of a crazy story, right? So kind of break down that story and how that how it played out your time in Dallas before you decided to go overseas.
Well, so yeah, the Dallas time, yeah, like just to correct you a little bit, I
Mm.
signed a 2 year, but I was only there for 6 months. I was part of the whole Jason Kidd deal, so I was the odd man out in that deal. My salary was not big enough, and so I went to Starbucks with Donnie Nelson at the time, and he sort of broke it down to me and was like, "Look, you're not going to be with us anymore because your salary doesn't fit and everything like that." So I got basically cut, and my 2 year deal was guaranteed. So that was obviously sweet. But then probably like 10, 15 days later, I had to make a decision on to go back to the D League to go back to play for the Tulsa 66ers. And my agent called me that day, and I played in the Clippers game that night. I literally flew from Dallas to LA, was in the locker room that afternoon studying the plays and everything like that. And Coach Dunleavy was like, "Look, I don't know if you're gonna play tonight, but you're gonna be here." And so then that's when I played like my next, like I think it was like 25 games with the Clippers. And then after that, yeah, my NBA you know time came to an end. The following year, I went to Denver. But yeah, just to sum it up, I went to Europe. Um, just completely hated Europe. I know you guys did Europe. I know you're in Europe. It's not Europe as a whole, but it just, that wasn't my type of basketball. And I was in France. I was in Dijon, France, and started having a little bit of like pain up the side of my leg, like my upper shin. And I went into the hospital and they said, "Yo, you got 12 bone chips and two bone spurs in your ankle." And they said it looked like someone had like basically dumped a bunch of rocks in my ankle. So, I didn't like Europe. So I was like, "Look, I'm going home. I got to have surgery." And so I went home, had surgery, and I have, on my ankle, like right here on the front, I have about two incisions right on the sides. And so on the outside one, I was in LA, had surgery from a Lakers guy, and I was supposed to sit in there, and chill for 7 days. And I remember I got to like the fifth day, and I was kind of like trying to get up out of like LA. I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to rehab. There was the talks of me playing for the Wizards the next year and everything like that. So I got the incision taken out a little bit too early. So the one incision never really closed. So I had a completely gaping hole all the way from, the outside of my ankle all the way down into my joint. And I remember like I kept thinking to myself like, well, it'll heal, man. I had so many different colors of stuff coming out my ankle, like, and it was just like I literally walked out of surgery, and then what was it? Probably a couple months went by, and man, I remember one time I was walking through the casino in Reno, and I had such bad pain. I mean, I was like excruciating pain. I had to sit down at the slot machine because I couldn't walk anymore. Literally had to like get my way out. Ended up having a second surgery as like an exploratory deal and just trying to like figure out what the heck was going on. But like this whole time I'm pushing, like literally like one leg, like no joke. And the Wizards were like, "Yo, you can play, you can play. Like we want to bring you in, we want to bring you in, everything like that." And so then I went back and I played in the D League, and I was in the D League, and I still like had a bunch of pain in my ankle. Like it was just like unbelievable pain. I can remember I was at my ex fiance's house, and I would get home from practice, and I would literally question, should I get off the couch and go to the bathroom because it hurt so bad to like get up and walk. So And at the time I was in the D League and I was getting like 17-9, and I literally was taking these pain pills that were just like naproxen and just everything that was like, look, man, you probably shouldn't be taking this stuff for a very long time because, I mean, it's probably going to end up damaging your liver pretty bad. So anyway, we go down to Bakersfield and I go back to the surgeon and I'm like, look, bro, we need to look at this thing. And so he gives me an MRI and he's like, you got a crack, you have a crack in your ankle. You basically have a broken ankle. He goes, how long you been feeling like this? I said, it's been about 4 or 5 months. And I said, he's like, how many games you played? I played 20 some odd games or whatever. You've been playing on a broken ankle this whole time. And so Eric Muscle made a funny story. He was my coach and he was yapping at me, you need to keep playing, you need to practice this and that. And I'm like, man, like I'm doing the best I can. Like I said, I was getting about 17-8. I was literally on one leg. I go to Muss and I'm like, look, bro, I got a broken ankle. And he's like, holy shit, Nick, I'm sorry. Like I didn't realize it was like this. I didn't realize it like this is how you were feeling. Like I'm like, man, I've been telling you this for how long? So after that, the doctor basically told me, like, look, you just need to chill out. We're just going to treat this as a break, put you back in a boot, you go on crutches, everything like that. And so that's pretty much what I did. And like, everyone wanted to like rehab me, and it was like, hey, just let's let us look at it. Just let us look at it. I was like, look, no one's touching this thing. Like, I've had so many people poke and prod me for the last year after having those multiple surgeries that I was like, look, I just want to chill. Like, I just want my body to let it figure it out the best I can. And so that's basically the story behind my ankle. It's just like it got to be so, I think it still is obviously like very, very like arthritic. And I mean, it just doesn't function like a normal ankle. Like it just doesn't function the way it is. But I mean, there was like so much trauma to it. There was an infection inside of it, and then obviously playing on a broken bone for like the greater part of probably like 4 or 5 months just didn't really help.
God damn. So you spent how many and now today you said it's arthritic and you've been playing how long did it so it never really fully recovered?
Oh no, no, it's not even. I mean, we're on the podcast. I mean, I've obviously played against you, Jordan, and haven't seen it, goods in a long, long time. But, I think people like, I go home in the summertime and people watch me walk and they're like, dude, you play basketball? Like, how you play basketball? Like, you can barely walk. I play golf, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week. And, like these old dudes, 60, 65-year-old dudes are walking. They're like, how the hell do you play basketball, bro? Like, you can't walk. And I'm just like, it's like riding a bike, like when you first start on the bike, it's like this, but once you get that bike going, like you go. And so, yeah, I mean, when I got off the plane, so, just circling back a little bit, when I went to the Philippines, that was my very first job, like after I had my whole ankle dispute. And I got off the plane and I actually got a buddy now that I made pretty good friends with him. And he said everyone that watched me walk into the gym was like, man, who the hell is this dude? Like, he can't even walk. Like, why would you guys sign this guy? And I had 55 that day. And everyone was like, oh, okay, he's good. He's cool. He can stay. So, yeah. So, like, I went to the Philippines and I played 7 games, for everyone who knows the Philippines, you play in these conferences and you can only play like 9 games at a time. And I played 7 games and I was getting like 32 and 21, I think, something like that.
Mm.
At 55, multiple 40 balls, and everyone was just like watching me walk and everything like that. And it was just like, like, how is this guy doing this? But then that was pretty much the time that like Nick Fazekas became sort of Nick Fazekas again. And everyone kind of, especially here in Asia, was like, yo, this dude can hoop.
So you've played at least what that's 10 years? No, what? Maybe at least 8 years on essentially one foot, is fair to say.
Yeah, probably longer than that. I mean, I've been here for 12 years and, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, I got it re-cleaned out just because I thought I was going to play in the Olympics. I played in the World Cup and I was like, look, I want to try to get this thing like moving as best as I can. And the guy who rehabbed me, I, it was in Arizona. My dad was there with me, and he goes, the guy who rehabbed me, he goes, man, your son's amazing. He goes, just imagine how good he was if he had two legs. And so like he kind of jokingly said that, but I mean, you just figured it out, right? I mean, you just figured out like I can't make this move, or I can only do this move, or like I can spin this way, but I can't spin that way, or like I got to put the guy here so I can get back to here and stuff like that.
I was just gonna say, I mean, and for I don't know how many of those years, but you've been hovering at 50, 40, 90. Do you think having that limited menu as far as like the moves and the things that you can do has kind of helped you be so efficient?
I mean, it definitely probably hasn't hurt, right? I mean, like I go in the summertime and I put a lot of time in, especially when I was younger. Like I used to, I had a summer I put up 1,000 shots a day, and I was really like very much like I'm gonna find a way to figure this out. And so yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I haven't really thought of it that way, but it's like, I had moves that I always wanted to get back to, like my right hook or my floaters or this and that. And it was like, I'm just gonna shoot a million of these things in the summertime, and then when I get back into the games or I get back into practice, you just go straight to that. And it was like I've already shot this thing a million times, and yeah, it was like I didn't have to create like this giant plethora of moves with like a million counter moves and everything like that because I couldn't do some of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like I had to keep it kind of very vanilla.
What made you what made you continue to like push and play basketball like with all that pain? Like what inside you was like, oh, I gotta, I'm saying you're obviously a smart dude. You probably could have done something else. Like what was it? It's like I need to keep hooping. Did you have something to prove? Like what was that mentality like?
I mean, it's hard to say, So, uh, I had like I said, I had an ex fiance, and like when my ankle was messed up and everything like that. Like I could have swore like I was done. Like, and this was when I was like 26 or 27 years old, and her and I ended up splitting. So then at that point, like I was literally sitting there without a house, without a car. I had some money in my name because of all the money I had made before that, but I was like, look, the only thing I know how to do in life is hoop. So I was like, I guess I'm just gonna go back to the D League and just figure this thing out. And so that then at that point, it was just kind of like, maybe I could just kind of, I don't know, like I still loved it, like I still love competing. I still love like showing up and hooping and being like, that's the best dude in the gym. That dude can go. You know what I mean? Like, and so like, yeah, I was smart and everything like that, but I mean, there just wasn't really anything else that I was really dying to do. I had thought about starting an AAU program, and I had thought about that, but I mean, once they called me in the Philippines and kind of told me about the money and everything like that, I was like, cool, like let's go give it a shot and see what happens.
So that being in that place kind of pushed you to become more hungry because a lot of people would shut down in that situation. They'd shut down and honestly probably stop hooping. It might not do anything at all. It might take them a minute to regroup.
Yeah, and I get it. You know what I mean? Like it was crazy, man. Like when I was in Reno and I was rehabbing and stuff, bro, it was some of the pain I was going through. Like I said, I mean, the decisions I was having to make just to get off the couch to go eat dinner and stuff like that was like, dude, I may never walk again. Who the heck knows? And like no one had ever really ever told me that. Like my surgeon had never really said that. Like I think the second time I went in and had surgery, he was like, "Look, man, you might be able to hoop for like another couple of years, but like this ain't gonna last for much longer." And so then part of me was kind of like, "All right, bro, like let's see if you actually know what you're talking about." You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, a little bit of my mindset of like being like the underdog mindset and kind of like stuff like that, kind of like made me think like, "All right, man, let's try to like conquer this thing. Like, let's see if we can actually like figure this thing out." And then when I got off the plane here in Japan and just kind of saw what this was like and kind of saw like, the capability or the like, I don't know, the sort of the light at the end of the tunnel was like, man, this place is where it could be, man. Like this fits you. Like this is the place that you should have been a long time ago. At that point, I was kind of like, all right, man, look, let's just put in the time, let's put in the effort, let's just try to figure this out because like my translator at the time was like, look, Nick, if you can spend a year or two here, you can spend a long time here. So I was like, all right, cool. This is for me. I figured it out after like a week.
So it sounds like Japan was like rejuvenation for you, in a sense.
I mean, I tell people all the time, like, the best decision of my life was to go to the University of Nevada. But sometimes now I think maybe the best decision of my life was to come to Japan just because, like, financially it set me up. It set my family up. It set my kids up. Like, it's definitely like set up the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I have so many tools now that I can do a lot of different things, and none of that ever happens without coming to Japan.
So we gonna get to Japan before we do, and that's interesting you say that. But I guess before you got to Philippines and Japan, was there, especially seeing what the NBA is now inside the league, you have, obviously the the load management or whatever you have. Is there resentment towards how they handled your injury within the D League, like with Coach Musselman, with all that? Is there some resentment or anything like that? Just looking back on how times have changed.
Nah, not really. Because, I was, like I said, I mean, my agent was like literally like, because he had a relationship with the Wizards, and like, it was always like, man, you can go to the Wizards. Like, the Wizards like you. I talked to the GM of the Wizards, and he's like, look, man, we like you. We like you. We like you. So for me, it was like, how can I get back to the NBA? Because, like, when I finished with the Clippers, my agent at the time had screwed things up so badly for me, but like, it was a no-brainer for me to be back on that Clippers roster that following season. But my agent went in a different direction, and I was just too young to like put my foot down and be like, nah, this is the place for me. Like, Coach Dunleavy was there. He was a completely offensive coach, didn't give a damn about no defense. I was like, look, this is perfect for me. But we cut ties with them. And then, like, I went to camp with the Denver Nuggets at the time, and Adrian Dantley was the assistant there. And about 2 weeks through camp, he looks at me and he goes, Nick, why the hell did you go back to school? And I'm like, AD, what are you talking about? He's like, you were a first round pick had you left after your junior year. And so, like, I knew I was an NBA player. Like, I knew I should have been in the NBA. I knew I should have felt like I should have made like millions and millions of dollars. So, like, at that time, it just was always in the back of my head, like, dude, whatever you got going on, you just got to forget about it because, like, you got to get back to the NBA.
Mm, that makes sense. So for like, I guess in the NBA, going through your injury now, there's so much made about, again, load management and all that. What was the when the coaches are on you about, oh, you got to play, you got to play? Give us insight, give listeners an insight to what you're thinking. When your coach is on, like, play through the injury. Are you kind of like, I can't do it, or are you like, oh, like you said, I got to do this to stick? Because obviously Kawhi can sit out, LeBron can sit out, but a lot of people, I don't know how much it's changed nowadays, and this is for both of you guys, I guess. How much do you think it's changed for role players in order, like, their ability to stay on the court? A lot of times they say best ability is availability, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was more so like practice. You know what I mean? Like when Muss is like pushing you, like, man, you need to go harder in practice. Like we doing 3-on-2, we doing 4-on-3. Like you need to run as hard as you can. And I'm like, look, bro, I'll give it to you next game day. Like I'll run as hard as I can in this 4-on-3. But like when it gets to game day, I'm gonna run a little bit harder, or I'm gonna probably play a little bit harder because like at that point, I probably popped enough pills and like I've done enough to like really like get the pain subsided. But like during the week, I was just doing my best to just try to like get through it. So you're right though. I mean, it's definitely it's a different time. Back in 2008 when I was around in the league, I mean, it was just a completely different league. Like people that played the way that I played, there was just like no value for us. And like you said, as far as like the injury stuff, yeah, I mean, but I don't know. You watch all this Kobe stuff, and like Kobe's always like, man, if I'm gonna play, I want to play. You know what I mean? Like that kid that came to the arena, like he was there to see me. He might have only saved up enough money to come one time. So I kind of always kind of felt like I had that in me as well. That I was like, look, like, I want to play. Like I'm here to play games, and I want to play games. The practice and stuff, that was like, if I had to sit out there or whatever, that wasn't a big deal. But when those lights came on, like I really wanted to play.
Yo,
so
so going back to being a stretch big in the NBA at that time, what was it like? Did you feel a lot more pressure to have to post up? Maybe in times where you didn't want to because that was just kind of like the trend. I mean, I know a lot more teams are playing, the 3 out, 2 in offenses as opposed to nowadays. But what was it like as a stretch big back then?
I mean, it was such an uphill climb. I mean, I can remember like Dallas seemed to be like the best fit for me, but at the same time, I mean, Dirk Nowitzki sitting in front of me. It's like there's no minutes. I mean, this dude's playing 42 minutes a game. Like, yeah, it's great to go learn from him and be around him. And I was in the gym with him at night, but it was like there's no minutes here. Like, you're not gonna play with this dude. You know what I mean? So like, I just remember like the combine and like getting measured and everything like that. And it was like, oh, he doesn't jump very high. Oh God, you know what I mean? I'm like, at that time, it was like, it was literally all about being a track meet. It was like, oh, this dude, he about to go number two because, he got a 9 foot wingspan and he can touch the top of the backboard. But it was like, man, I played against this dude. He can't even score 6 points in a basketball game. So it was like, it was just kind of frustrating at that time because there was just like no value for what like stretch bigs brought. And like, yeah, in 2008, you did have Dirk that was Dirk, but he had already like established himself so well that like there was never like, I don't think there was anyone that really thought like there was going to be the next Dirk Nowitzki. And then, I mean, now we're at where we're at, and it's like everyone has to shoot threes in order to play. But at the time, man, it was literally like a run and jump contest.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's talk about you spent time with Dirk in the gym real quick. Is there anything that stood out to you about, like, obviously, like you said, Dirk is Dirk. Is there anything that he did that has stuck with you in your game, or anything that he did that just stuck out to you at that superstar level?
I mean, he was just one of them guys that put the work in, like it was me and my cousin. We lived together in Dallas. I took him with me when I got drafted, and Dirk was like, yo, we're going to be at the gym tonight at 7. We're going to be at the gym tonight at 8. And like, I had never really been that guy like in college that was like shooting a ton extra or like going back to the gym. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't on that two-a-day stuff, but Dirk was like, look, Rook, you need to be here. So like me and my cousin would be at one side and we'd just be shooting like on the gun, or like my cousin, we shot so much. I can remember my cousin got blisters on his fingers because he was passing that ball to me so many times. But bro, Dirk was there every night, and he was down there with this guy, that Holger guy that he had, and I mean, he was just doing all kind of like funky stuff, like just stuff that like, I was like, where did he even learn how to do this? But then like when you watch some of the documentaries and stuff about that guy and him and Dirk, about how he tried to basically create Frankenstein, it was like I saw this stuff firsthand. But I mean, just the work that he put in, Dirk wasn't a big like weightlifting guy, but as far as like hooping and like putting that time in, as far as like, basically perfecting his craft, like he was definitely one of those guys.
You've essentially become Dirk of Japan now. Seriously, like no bullshit. You essentially become Dirk Nowitzki of Japan. When you went over there, did you? For those that don't know, Japan is emerging as probably the second biggest basketball market in the world
Japan, a
right
new
now.
China, baby.
Japan's
really
bigger
is.
than China now. No, like, it's more reliable, especially just as like quality of living. Like the money's probably just as good or better. It's cleaner, et cetera, et cetera. It could go on and on. Did you foresee Japan becoming the market it is right now when you went over there?
Nah, no chance, dog. No chance. Like, we got the B League now, and the B League is, just stands for the basketball league. Sometimes people be like, well, what's the A League? You'd be like, no, man, they just named it that way. But man, when I first got here, there was like 8 teams, and there was a bunch of company teams. It was basically just like a big giant billboard contest. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, we gonna throw Toshiba on the jerseys, we gonna throw Toyota on the jerseys, and we gonna get a little bit of advertisement. And then if this team does well, we get to get thrown in the newspaper, and it was all good. So man, we used to play in front of like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, man. We probably used to play between like 500 and 1,000 people. Like there was nothing before the games. Like you would get done hooping. I mean, I used to high five every fan outside of the gym. That's what my team would do. Like we would literally stand out there and be like, and they'd be like, good game, to every single fan because there wasn't that many people. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this is crazy. But like, it felt like a glorified men's league, like a very high paid men's league at the time. But then, yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't foresee it like you said, but then it was just like, I mean, I don't even really know how it really broke when I sit and think about it. Like, I mean, there was two different leagues. There was the JBL and there was the BJ League, and like the FIBA was pissed off because there was two separate leagues, and Japan didn't want to recognize one as being the better league versus the other league, and so that was probably really like the cam or the straw that broke the camel's back when it was like we need to figure out who's the best league. So then the two leagues were like, all right, we need to come together, and then that's when the ball really started to roll. But when I first got here, man, I'm no joke. It was a glorified men's league. We used to like be in the back chopping it up, lace them up, and be like, all right, let's go hoop. You know what I mean? And then just be done. Like go out every Saturday. Like it was crazy. Like, I mean, I tell people the story all the time. So when I got here first time, I played for Toshiba. All the Japanese dudes on my team, they were company employees. Them boys were going to work at 8 a.m., getting off at noon. Then they was coming to practice at 2. And then like sometimes they'd tell me that they had to go drinking with their colleagues and stuff like that on like a Tuesday night. The boys would come back on Wednesday hungover and no one would say anything because it didn't matter. Like the job was more important than the basketball.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So it's more like honestly, you probably more like Bill Russell than Dirk then honestly, because that was like really, that was really that's, honestly that's dope though. Like I've talked to a couple of people. Me and Goods have talked about this. Like, how cool is it to be the pioneer of an entire basketball league? Like it's not the NBA, but like you really have to still sit there and think like I'm like the godfather of a basketball league, and well,
Mhm.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you generally don't like to say that about yourself, but yeah, I mean, you know, I can remember when they asked me to naturalize, and that was like really a huge step for this whole place. And but yeah, it was basically like I showed up, man. It was getting like 28 and 14, and like Toshiba before I had got here, they had won 8 games the year before. They were the worst team in the league. Like it was a joke. And I remember I showed up in preseason, and they were like, yeah, we just kind of want to like go 500 this year. And I remember thinking like, man, I didn't even know anything about the team. And then we ended up losing game 5 of the finals that year. And so we went from like almost worst to first. And then that was when like sort of like this whole like thing really just started to really like go for me, is because it was like, holy cow, like who is this dude? Like he literally took the worst team to almost the best team. And then the next year we just ran through everything. And so like when you talk about being like a pioneer, like I do like to think that I played at least a decent part in kind of getting Japanese basketball to at least where it's at right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yo, would y'all? What are the budgets for these teams in Japan, like overall? Because I'm starting to think, like, I'm wondering if does Japan have the highest paid local players of any domestic league outside of the NBA?
Ooh, I would venture to say yes.
Across
I
the
mean,
board for sure.
J yeah, JT played at Toyota, so he would definitely know. I mean, Toyota has the biggest budget there is. I mean, they definitely have like 3, 4 times the budget than anyone else. But I mean, yeah, like I think JT said, across the board, I think for sure. I mean, of course, like who do you got? Some of those guys that have washed out of the NBA that are European that are playing for Barcelona and stuff like that, they get like buku dollars. But the seventh, eighth man, there's no way they get what some of these guys are getting.
Yeah, no chance. These dudes are, especially across what now, 18, 20 teams. Like,
Mm.
if you include Europe as like entirety of Euro League, I guess maybe it's probably still Euro League. Like if you include the guys on Spanish guys on Barcelona, on on Red Star, etc., then it's probably still Euro League. But domestically, I think it's not. I don't think it's even
Yeah,
close.
that's a good question, because but I think, I mean, numbers get thrown around, and you know shout out to Togashi, but he was the one guy who made his thing. He made his salary public, and he kind of said that he wanted to make it public, like more like the NBA. And it's not there yet, and I don't know if it ever will be. But it was like everyone kind of saw his salary, and then like you start hearing numbers about other guys, and it's like this probably is real because I saw what Togashi got. So I think that this dude's probably getting something close to that as well. Like I don't think this is some blown out of proportion number.
I think just to backtrack a little bit, I think also part of what Swish Cultures does, part of what now other pages are doing, this podcast included. I think the coolest thing is to get your story out. It sets an example for, I think, gives excitement to guys outside of the NBA as well. It's like if you don't make the NBA, you can still create a legacy. You can still create, your own story that's super dope without being probably even cooler. Like I would argue if your story is much cooler than getting drafted 50th and playing 5 years in the NBA and then you retire. Like I think it's way cooler.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, like, obviously sometimes when you go back to the States, it's not as cool because people be like, oh, you play basketball. And it's like, they don't really care. Like, oh, you play for Kawasaki. Like, no one really knows. But, like, over here is a whole different story. You know what I mean? Like, the fact I announced my retirement and the thing completely goes viral, like, I mean, it's just kind of crazy that stuff like that can happen. So, yeah, you're right. Like, it's definitely a bigger and probably better story. It's just a matter of like what part of the water you're on or what part of the water or side of the water you're on, because it's like no one really cares much about what we're doing in the States, but you can accomplish some crazy stuff overseas and that's another part of the world that basketball is played at a pretty high level and like people gonna
I
remember
feel
it.
like now though with the extra visibility of how guys are living, what they're doing, and things like that overseas, it makes it a lot more attractive. As we were talking about before we went on air, like I think the whole thought of having to transition is daunting for a lot of people. But when you know that you have options and things you could do and places you can go that don't seem so scary, then I mean, I think it makes these guys realize like, okay, I don't have to settle for this two-way, or I don't have to go to the G League for a year. I could go over here and make what I'm worth at this particular time, and it might not be so bad. Whereas I feel like back in '08 or prior to Josh Childress, a few guys would come over, but what I mean, it wasn't like it is today. I mean, how many NBA guys can't come overseas in this season alone? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
Yeah, gives you something to look forward to. Like you don't just go to die. I guess for
Yeah, for
for
sure. But yeah,
parenting.
you're right. I mean, you go to a place and yeah, like you said, it's not as, I think, daunting is the right way to put it. Like it's almost like you kind of feel welcomed in certain places. You come in and you fit what that team needs. Like all of a sudden, they handing you extra shoes. They giving you a better apartment. They give you a better car. Like all of a sudden, you start to feel like, okay, I'm feeling appreciated. And like you said, you're getting the right money to where you feel like you're worth and everything like that. So then all of a sudden, I mean, it's crazy to think, but like, how many guys have we played with that like spend the whole summer and they're like, dog, I gotta go back. I'm so mad about going back. But bro, I'll be honest, my 12 years, like there's been times in the summertime, like I can't wait to go back. Like I want to go. Like I like it over there. Like I'm enjoying it.
Hmm. And just for the listener, go ahead and I know you said it off camera, but what you mentioned your retirement going viral, just kind of break down what that looks like what they're talking about in comparison to what's happened in the States with Kobe and Dirk.
Yeah, so I've announced it, and everyone was like really really shocked. My team, I think they did have the idea of kind of doing it like Kobe and Dirk, and kind of like they want to give the fans like one last chance to watch Nick Fazekas, and they kind of want to put it out there to be like, look, you can see him one last time, or maybe some kids that have never seen me play are like, look, this is the last time you're gonna get to see him play. So, uh, yeah, it was pretty crazy. Obviously, went on after the last preseason game, and like, we had a stadium that was it was a little bit, maybe half full, and everyone in the crowd just like couldn't believe it. Like I seen people, tons of people crying, and just like, I mean, it was just like crazy, and like, I try to just tell people like, look, it's, I understand it's sad, but it's like try to be happy that, you got to experience it. You know what I mean? Like for myself, I'm happy I got to experience it and I got to be here for 12 years and like everything like that. But yeah, I mean, they're expecting like ceremonial videos on the road. They're expecting me to get flowers by other teams. They're expecting me to like, I mean, they've already started doing things with like all the guys that I've played with, like talking about what it was like being with me and everything like that. So like, my one teammate, he kind of tells me, he's like, bro, there's about to be 5,000 people here for the last game. He's like, all 5,000 people about to be crying.
And that's crazy. And I hope on your end, I hope there's some type of like documentary or video. Seriously, like that. Nah, I'm so serious. I think that, especially nowadays, the way that, I mean, people seem to be consuming content, like that would be something that would be super interesting to see. It would be literally the first American overseas with a farewell tour that I can think of. Goods is a
Yeah.
almanac for that, so he might
And
know
then
something else. But
the documentary,
But
the
yeah, I
last.
mean, yeah, my team does a great job with YouTube. So, I mean, I'm sure there'll be something. They try to put something together. So, like, yeah, I mean, it should be pretty cool, and obviously something you get to kind of look at the rest of your life.
hell yeah, hell yeah. Talk about obviously everything you've done. One thing that we haven't touched on yet, and we want to real quick, is with the World Cup just passing. Obviously, people in the States pay attention to the U.S. losing. One of the underlying headlines was Japan qualifying, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time, not as the host country, right?
Yeah.
So, and I
Yep.
know obviously you're not playing on the national team anymore, but along with your success in Japan, a big part of that was quite literally building up their national team and turning it into what it is today. So talk about the pride that you have in that success, and also if you have any like stories, just talk about your journey with the national team.
Yeah. So obviously I naturalized and, I was like eager to do it because, it was just, going back to my story about, washing out of the NBA and, fighting with my ankle and everything like that. It was like, I was like psyched to play at that world level because it was like I'm gonna get to play against NBA dudes. Like this is going to be like this is going to be like some big time basketball, and so like I was pretty excited about doing it, and it took me a little while, a little longer than what I wanted to get the passport, but then when I got it, coincidentally, the very first game that we played was against Australia, and Australia at the time was a top 10 team in the world. And of course it was just a World Cup qualifying game, but it was here in Japan. They sold the place out. Like I show up and I'm like, all right, bro, I'm ready to kill. Like I'm ready to give whoever's in front of me like 40 and we about to win this game. And you know, just a little bit of like backstory on Japanese national team. Like every single time the national team would play before I got a passport, all the Japanese dudes would tell me like, "Oh, the team's about to get smacked by 20 tonight. They about to lose by 30." And like pretty much every single time the national team played, they lost by like 20 or 30. It didn't matter who they played, where they played, it didn't matter. And so like I showed up, and of course, Rui was on the team, so Rui had helped. He was still at Gonzaga, but we beat Australia, right? And like they were like, this is the biggest win in Japanese national team history, far and away. There's like nothing that's even close to this. So we had just knocked off Australia. So then, that was the first window of the World Cup qualifier. So then we had to go to Taiwan, and it was like, we can't lose to Taiwan and this and that. And I'm like, looking at Taiwan, and I'm like, bro, this is going to be 35 and 15. Like, we going to walk out of here easy with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, go over there and do that. So then after that, we ran off like, I think we ran off like 7 or 8 straight. Like we went to Iran and beat Iran, which was like, everyone said that was nearly impossible to do. We went there and beat them boys. And then finally we beat Qatar and qualified for the World Cup. And, just a little bit of backstory about that. Like FIBA was kind of putting pressure on Japan as far as like wanting them to have like a competitive team in order to put them in the Tokyo Olympics.
Mm.
So like the JBA, which is, Japanese Basketball Association, had kind of come to me and was like, look, Nick, we need you to help us qualify for the World Cup. Otherwise, they might not put us in the Olympics, even since we're the host nation, because they don't think we can compete. So sure enough, we ran off like what I say, like 7 or 8 in a row, got qualified for the World Cup, and then that was like just like the coolest thing in the world, right? It was like a lot of pride, a lot of like, it was just like when we beat Australia, like I can remember the next day we showed up on the bus and everyone was like exhausted. It was like no one slept because it was one of the biggest wins in my whole entire basketball career. And then, you got to the World Cup, and the World Cup's just a different level. But, I really feel like that Australia win was the win that sort of like really just took this thing to the next level. And now I think you're seeing kind of what the Japanese basketball team is capable of, simply for the fact of like they believe they can win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not like we show up and we're like, oh, we're gonna get rocked today. Like no, we believe we can win.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was some like controversy too, right? With you in the Olympics, wasn't it? Was it there something like that with Ryan or?
Oh yeah. So then we get, so at the time, they had wanted to naturalize other guys because they kind of saw like I think the power of like naturalizing guys that could help. And so yeah, we played in the World Cup, and just we had gotten a group with us, USA, Czech, and Turkey. And Turkey was still rolling out some like heavy duty dudes, and Czech I think finished in the top 8 with like Sadaransky and those kind of guys. So obviously we didn't win, and then we went down to the second stage and we didn't win any games. So um, I think that the national team kind of had thought like, okay, Nick did what he was supposed to do, but like we need to find someone that fits with the team. And so then, yeah, they had naturalized another couple guys, and they ended up taking Gavin Edwards to the Olympics. And yeah, they didn't win any games in the Olympics, but that was basically the job. I kind of felt like I had won and I had got done for the team, so I felt like I had earned it. But you know, for people that have never played like at that World Cup or Olympic level, man, it's not like Wisconsin playing against Nevada, put it that
Right.
way. Like it is like David versus Goliath. Like
Yeah.
it is literally a completely different deal. Like that's why it's so encouraging what Japan is able to accomplish, because they're actually winning some games against like Finland, and they go and beat Venezuela and stuff like that. But man, I mean, you play USA 100 times, you're gonna lose 100
Yeah,
times.
facts. Most guys.
Like there's no question about it.
Was there a pride? Was it like a competitive pride that was like driving that, or was there a pride wearing the Japanese jersey and just playing in the World Cup, knowing that you or what was the what did it feel like? I'm not even sure what the right question is in this situation, but what did it feel
Yeah,
like playing in the World Cup level? Because I think you probably grew up like saying, hey, maybe you get to play for USA, right? Like, so
yeah.
playing for another country, which you see happen so much now, what was that feeling like?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool, like, obviously, to represent Japan, like the fact that they took sort of their effort and their time to naturalize you, right? So you kind of had some pride, and you definitely took some pride wearing Japanese flag on your chest. But man, I mean, all of us that didn't get to play in the NBA or washed out of the NBA, and you get to naturalize, and then you get to go to that stage, you're like, look, now I get another chance. You know what I mean? So that was like, you're asking the question, but it was more from a competitive standpoint of like, look, I'm about to still go show all these dudes who Nick Fazekas is,
Right.
even though I'm 32 years old, and instead of being 23. But you know, does anyone really care? Nah, not really. But like, it's for your pride, your ego, and like you go out there and we played New Zealand, and I think I had like 41 or something like that against New Zealand in the second stage, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I can still do this. You know what I mean? So like, uh, it was a little bit of both. But man, when you get that second chance, you know what I mean? Like, you really want to take advantage of it.
There's it's interesting to say. I think, like you said, you have that from a competitive drive to show who you are, whereas the U.S. is taking guys who people already know who they are. Like they're really not. I don't think they're really there to prove anything individually. So knowing what you know, competing at that level, how does the U.S. put some of that pride back into their team? And do you think that's part of the reason they've struggled when they don't bring the best guys?
I agree. I watched JJ Redick's podcast, and he talks about, like, you know, what's the mindset of an NBA guy when he gets a lesser role versus, a guy like myself who goes into the World Cup and gets a much greater role. Like I could get to shoot the ball 25 times, but Mikal Bridges and Reeves and those guys, they only get to shoot the ball 4 or 5 times. It's not that much fun for them. But, I'm sure a lot of, people that enjoy this podcast and basketball fans, like, if anyone saw Kevin Durant's interview yesterday when they specifically asked him, like, so what you going to do next summer? He was like, I'm going to play in the Olympics. I'm playing in the Olympics. Like, he didn't even say, like, we'll see. He's like, no, I'm going to play.
Mm-hmm.
I think a guy like that has the pride to where he's like, look, even if I shoot the ball 6 times, I don't really care. I'm coming out here to show everyone that I'm the best player or we're the best team. So maybe call it a generational thing, maybe call it a mindset. I don't really know, but like, like you look at that Redeem team and you watch that stuff about Kobe, and it was like he set the tone for that whole entire thing. And like I feel like LeBron has a lot of that pride as well, and Durant has a lot of that pride, but you get a bunch of guys that just go out there and aren't happy with their roles. I just think it's a recipe for disaster.
No, 1,000%, and it's hard to, like you said, hard to convince those guys to take pride in a role that's lesser. So, would you,
Yeah.
if you were, I think Colangelo's still in charge. If you were Jerry Colangelo, does it make sense for the U.S. to take, say, Mike James and Will Clyburn to the World Cup and kind of see what
Yeah.
happens one time?
I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a terrible idea. You know what I mean? I mean, I know people talk about a tryout, but it's like, I don't know, man. Does an NBA guy really want to do a tryout? But I mean, maybe you do throw 50 of them in that gym in Vegas and say, look, we about to play and see who's the best. And some guy's going to be bitter. You know what I mean? Like, you and I probably did it when we were 17, 18, 19 years old and got cut from Team USA. And like,
Hmm.
you went home and you was pissed. And so, like, maybe the tryout is the right answer. But yeah, maybe taking guys that are like, chomping at the bit to go play, maybe that's more the guy that you need.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, honestly, to me, I think that would could make potentially the NBA product better, just because that
Mm,
bitterness is going to bleed over into the season. You're going to feel like you got spite, you got
yeah,
something to prove, et cetera, et cetera. So it's
I agree.
that's an interesting dynamic, man. But we got one last segment for you before we let you get up out of here. It's called Paycheck Rain Check, which we do every time we're on the show. This today's topic is James Harden, who a lot of people are probably tired of. I never get tired of talking about the beard, but trade demands from the beard continue to go unanswered, and he's expected to make a scene in Philly training camp. For you, is it ever worth it to keep a disgruntled player on the team? And then second part of that question, is the trade demand culture ruining the NBA or ruining, I guess it says basketball, but we'll say ruining the NBA?
I mean, me personally, I think I get him out of there. I don't think having a disgruntled player is going to help the team. It's not going to help the locker room. I mean, I just don't see how it's going to be beneficial to keep him. So if it's me, I obviously look for the best suitor, as far as what you can get back for him. I mean, I understand you're not going to get what you want or get what you think you might deserve, but like at this point, I mean, of course, everyone says it's going to be Ben Simmons 2.0. And what was the second part of the question?
Is the trade culture ruining the
Oh,
NBA? Trade demand culture.
yeah, of course. I mean, totally. I mean, I just don't. I mean, I don't know why everyone wants to be traded to here and play with this guy and play with that guy. Like, I don't know. Like, I grew up obviously watching MJ, and I referenced Kobe a lot. And Kobe was like that as well. But it's like those guys were wanting to just come out and just beat your ass. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted to go at you. They didn't care who was on the squad. Like I feel like Jimmy Butler's got a little bit of that in him. Obviously, Damian Lillard has said he's got some of that in him. I think he just became lucky now that he gets to play over where he's at. But I mean, why does everyone have to be buddy buddy? You know what I mean? Like I understand making friends or whatever, but like when you get in between those lines, like I don't really care how close we are. Like we will go at
Yeah, honestly, I probably play harder against my friends, to be honest. Like, I probably try and kill them even more so, to be honest. But I think I think money is ruining the. I think money's ruining the NBA in a sense. There's too much money in it now, which I say that with a grain of salt because I obviously, as a basketball player, love to see more money in the
it.
game. But I think
Yeah,
you have all these dudes who care about their brand for good reason and want to be where they want to be, and they have so much control and power because of the amount of money that they make, where it's like you can't really say shit to them. I think at some point the NBA is going to have a hard time, and I think they tried to do that now with the 65 game minimum and some of the restrictions on sitting out. But I think there's still going to become a reckoning with fans where it's like a dude's making 62 million and he's playing 50 games a year. Like like even as a basketball player, I bring my kid to a game and buddy's sitting out because his ankle's
yeah, you
sore.
be pissed off.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
not even, and might not even be because he wants to sit out like the players say. But yeah, that's the trade culture is gonna get very interesting here as it goes down. But I've known people who I've been fortunate enough to be around minority owners of teams, and it's interesting because I guess they said the same thing back in 2000s when they're like a team was worth 190 million. They're like, God, the bubble's got to pop, but it just keeps going up and up. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
But yeah, then you see what Kawhi said today. I mean, he came out and said he's like, there's no rule that's going to stop me from sitting. So it was like, clearly he don't care. And like, yeah, clearly I have no idea how they're going to deal with that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just, yeah, I think I'm cut from a little bit different just as far as like, I want to play, like I feel like, guys like you and I, we've been fortunate enough to play this long. I've obviously had my injury, which I think even helps kind of keep that chip on my shoulder even more. But like, I want to play. Like I don't want to waste no one's time. I don't want to waste my time. Like I want to go out there and hoop. I want to play. That's what I'm getting paid to do. Not even so much from that, but it's like I like doing it. Like I don't like sitting out. I don't like showing up to practice and having to sit on the side, or like I don't like sitting behind the bench and having to watch everyone play. Like I want to play.
Yeah, that's literally what your identity is. Like that's what we do. You play basketball. So as
Yeah,
someone I
yeah,
completely understand, as someone I've had 8 surgeries now, so it's like that thing when
yeah.
you being injured, being on the sideline is the worst, and it is what it is, man. But we'll leave it at that, man. Again, for the listeners, it's Role Player Podcast. Make sure you go check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else you get your podcast, or on social media on YouTube, IG, TikTok, and Twitter with the handle at Role Player Media, and also on Swish Culture's YouTube page. I'm Jordan Taylor. Anthony Goods is somewhere with us, and Nick, man, we appreciate you joining us and sitting down and chopping it up with us, man. That was great.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys, man. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, just fun to do this stuff, kind of talk to people that you don't even realize are watching or fans, you know what I mean? Then,
Absolutely.
hello to everyone. Hope you enjoyed it and take something away from it. So thanks.
Yes, sir. We'll catch y'all next time.